What's going on, guys? Today we're going to talk a little bit about the relationship between intensity and recovery. The reason I want to talk about this is it's very common that people have far too much intensity. And I guess who I'm really talking to is people who like to work out because obviously that's who is going to fall into this problem of having too much intensity. I think the cause of this really, if I look back to when I began weightlifting, which was when I was about 13 years old, and you look at like the 70s and 80s and the age of pumping iron and bodybuilding, most people got their weightlifting advice from bodybuilding magazines and bodybuilders. Today, and more recently, I think it's the influence of CrossFit, which CrossFit has had a lot of positive effects and some negative ones too. And this is one of them. So here's the main thing, that it's hard to try to do what bodybuilders or elite level CrossFitters are doing, and even elite athletes that you might see training on the internet, because simply they are elite athletes. And you also have to factor in, especially in the case of bodybuilders, but also in the other cases, using anabolic steroids. How are you going to do a program that someone who is on anabolic steroids is doing? It's probably going to have far too much volume and intensity, and the person on steroids can handle it because the steroids allow them to recover, whereas you cannot. And that's really where I used to get information from as well. So you're getting a ton of volume when it's not appropriate for you. And something else I see too, and you see this basically with ignorant coaches, and they're everywhere, they're uneducated. You'll see a coach you'll see young athletes, maybe high school aged or even younger, and they're doing super advanced exercises that might take years to progress to, or there's a progression to get there to where you can do these, and they'll just start these kids with these exercises, and you'll look at them and the movement is terrible. So what's the point of practicing if you're building bad motor patterns when the whole goal is the opposite? And they're just really facilitating injury of these kids. They're training them way too hard with exercises that are way too advanced. They got sloppy movement, and then they throw on top of that a ton of volume because they have no understanding of anything. They just have a big tool bag of exercises, and they think that's what makes you a good coach. And it doesn't. But it might look cool from the outside observer who doesn't necessarily know. So one of the issues with this is when just an average person starts taking on maybe a program that's, again, far too intense and not allowing recovery, is you get a decrease in performance. It's going to give you excessive fatigue. You're going to feel fatigued by things that wouldn't normally fatigue you if you were in a recovered state. And this is over a prolonged period. You might disrupt your hormones. You're going to have messed up sleep patterns. And again, all those things cascade and are going to give you a higher chance of being injured. So what's the takeaway here? So basically, am I saying you shouldn't train intense? No, I'm saying about half your training sessions should be low to moderate intensity, and then half of them should be high intensity. So I like to look at it in like a monthly overview. And I like to have 2 low moderate intensity weeks with 2 high intensity weeks. And then one of those weeks is a overreaching week where I'm really reaching, I'm trying to really maximize my strength and the expression of it. And then you need time to recover from that. And the problem is most people they'll be in that overreach all the time because they're such in a hurry to get their results that they're just impatient and they don't understand the physiology behind your body actually recovering, and they're always pushing. Well, we know that after a super high intensity workout, maybe 90% and above, your performance is actually going to go down for a few days. And then you have to let that recovery take place, and it's called super compensation, where you actually recover to a level that's higher than what your old strength was before the workout. But if you don't allow for that recovery, then it's just going to keep on going down. So, you got to know. So, again, half low, moderate intensity weeks, half high intensity weeks. Now, after a high intensity workout, it takes to fully recover 7 to 9 days. So over a week, it takes you to be ready to go again. So I see this all the time with high school athletes. They always want to go in the gym and they always want to max out every day. And I try to explain to them, This right here, what I'm talking to you about today, is the reason why that's not a good idea. And the other great thing is I talked about when you're overtrained, you are fatigued. Well, if you're training correctly, you're just gonna feel energized and training is going to be awesome. I wanted to give you a few numbers also to support what I'm telling you. So there was an article I was reading about elite level endurance athletes, and it said, so we're talking about like marathoners and things like that, 8 in 10 runs are low intensity or low to moderate intensity. So 8 out of 10 times an elite level runner goes out and runs, they're not pushing themselves super hard. So you should take that into account in your training. Now we look at weightlifters. When they break down weightlifting protocols, and this is all stuff that's been developed from the Soviets, which is kind of where we have most of what we know about weightlifting today, or it's really the foundation of where it came from, is the Soviet Union and their studies that they conducted. Most elite level weightlifters, so Olympic style weightlifting, if you took all their workouts and all the intensities and tried to get the average, they're training at about an average of 80% intensity. And so that includes weeks that are down by 65%, 70%, and then weeks at 80%, and then maybe 1 or 2 weeks a month where they're getting close to 90% or above. And so that is what you want to do. You want to stay away from the method of always hammering your body, because you have to recover, and recovery takes time. And if you're not recovering, then what are you doing? You're really just working out and accelerating yourself to an injury, which really doesn't make sense, especially if you're the average person. Because I once heard it said that if you want to be healthy, don't compete. If you're trying to exercise like an elite level athlete, then you're probably just on your way to an injury, when, in my opinion, you should be training to support longevity in the long term, so that as you grow older, you maintain independence and you're strong and you can pick up your kids and you can do things around the house. I mean, to me, that's really the reason, for you to feel good, not just to feed your ego, and then you're gonna be in bad shape down the road. So I hope you enjoyed this video on intensity and recovery.